Rock Hill and the world, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on what time you're watching this. I'm Chris Corrado. We're here with another episode of Rock Hill Video. Today we have on Sheriff Max Dorsey. As I always like to say at the beginning of our shows, our guests, when we bring them on, we don't here to bash anyone, to praise anyone. Everyone gets an equal opportunity to share information about the issues and what they want to talk about. I do want to add that I have reached out to one of his opponents, Alex Underwood. I haven't heard anything back yet, but his opponent, Alex, and the other gentleman who is running against him is welcome to come on this show, and we're more than happy to give them their fair opportunity to talk about the issues. So, Sheriff Dorsey, thank you for coming on our show today.
Thanks for the invitation, Chris. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's going to be a fun time. So, what would you like to share about your background and family life for our viewers?
So, Chris, well, thanks for inviting me. Again, my name is Max Dorsey. I'm the current sheriff of Chester County. I have served in this capacity since May of 2019. Prior to that, I worked for the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, which is commonly known as SLED. I began there when I was in college, when I was about 19 years old, answering the telephone, and I worked my way up. After I graduated University of South Carolina, I was assigned as a special agent in the narcotics division, and I worked there for some time. Began working multi-county drug trafficking organizations, assigned to the Attorney General's office, and eventually was promoted to lieutenant and to captain of the narcotics division. And so in total, I've worked about 25 years for SLED. And in May of 2019, I was contacted by Governor McMaster and asked to serve as the appointed sheriff for Chester County due to the indictment of Sheriff Underwood at the time by the federal government, by the United States Attorney's Office.
Got it. Thank you. So you're with the Chester County Sheriff's Office. Are you from Chester originally?
I am. So I'm from Chester. I've lived there all my life, with the exception of when I was in college and a couple years after college. I'm married. I have 2 kids. My wife's a school teacher. I have a son that's a senior at Louisville High School, and I have a daughter. She's a freshman at Louisville High School. And so I have roots in Chester County back before we were even a nation, back in the early 1700s. I have an ancestor. One of my grandfathers actually fought in the Revolutionary War, and he's buried there in Old Purity Cemetery in Chester County. So my roots go back a long ways in Chester.
What would you like our viewers to know? I mean, there's going to be a lot of local people watching this show, but people from all over the world have access to see this program. What would you like to share about Chester? What's special about Chester to you?
Chester is a wonderful place. We are a small rural county. We are in the Charlotte metro area. We are 3 hours from the beach, 2 hours from the mountains. We have a wonderful climate, although it does get extremely hot in the summertime, but that's just the way it is in South Carolina. We have a wonderful area that is beautiful. We have a lot of countryside, but we are also within a stone's throw from a major metropolitan region. We have a major tire manufacturer, steel manufacturing plant. So we have a lot of businesses in Chester, but we are still growing. We have experienced a lot of hardship over the past 2 to 3 decades. We were a part of the textile industry, the springs industry, and other textile manufacturing companies were a staple in our economy. And so in the 1990s, the economy began to shift, and those textile companies closed, and we never were able to really respond to that departure of the textile industries. And so we've experienced, really over the past 20 years, some economic hardships, and that has resulted in some collateral damage to our citizens, to our neighborhoods, but we are changing. We are on we're on the cusp of really making some significant changes in our community. And along those lines, I think the way we can change is we can do it by providing personal safety, public safety. And that's where that's one of my platforms. I'm a firm believer that when people are safe, then our economy can prosper. People can, they feel more comfortable in making investments. They feel more comfortable having their families out and involved in the community. And so that's why public safety is so important. And it's not just in Chester County, but throughout the world. There's a book that I quote quite often. It's called The Locust Effect. And it's written by a guy named Gary Hagan. And Gary Hagan was a former United States attorney, but he later started a nonprofit called the International Justice Mission. And that nonprofit is an organization that fights human trafficking in the slavery market worldwide, the global slavery market. And he talks about how there are so many things that we invest throughout the world. We teach people how to farm and grow their own food. We teach people how to read. But when it comes down to the local level, none of that matters unless people feel safe. Parents are not going to send their children off to a school in India to learn how to read unless they feel comfortable that those children are going to return unharmed. We can teach people how to cultivate their own plants and grow their own food, but does that really matter when some criminal gang is going to come in and kill and rape people during the night? And so here in America, I think that philosophy still applies. It's very important that we emphasize public safety, because until people feel safe in their homes and in their communities, then they're going to be reluctant to make those investments. And so that's what I want to do for Chester. That's what I've been doing since the day I got here, and I'm going to continue doing that.
Okay, thank you. You told us a good bit about what you were doing before becoming sheriff. Is there anything else you wanted to share that about your early life or work life that we didn't already talk about?
Well, my law enforcement career was spent in narcotics enforcement. And so not only was I involved in investigations and managing investigations, I was heavily involved in methamphetamine investigations. So in the early to mid, well, anywhere from 2009, 10, somewhere, we began seeing a large increase in our meth labs in South Carolina and really throughout the country. And so I was very involved in writing some policies in South Carolina that led to the implementation of the statewide meth lab cleanup protocol. When a meth lab is found, there's a lot of hazardous waste that is produced from that lab. And so I wrote and implemented a policy. I was given some money by the General Assembly, and so I started the meth lab cleanup program. And it was a multi-million-dollar, multi-year contract where we would have contractors come in and remove the gross contaminants of meth labs, and we would render those safe. I was also involved in writing a statewide policy and procedure for dealing with drug-endangered children. When children were found in meth lab environments, we had a protocol in place to where those children could be safely removed and taken care of, and provided medical and psychological help.
Got it.
All of that led to me being invited to testify before the United States Congress back in 2012.
Wow.
And so I was invited to testify before a House committee on the impact of methamphetamine in South Carolina.
Is that available to watch on YouTube by any chance?
I know the transcript is online. I don't know if the video is, but it was an exciting time. I'm I love government, and I love the study of government, and so it was a highlight of my career to be able to testify before that committee and offer some insight as to what's going on in South Carolina. And that was in 2012. Now the meth trade has changed a lot since 2012. We were heavily involved in seeing meth labs, 700, 800, 900 meth labs in South Carolina a year around 2012 to about 2015, 14 or 15. But we have since seen a change in those labs. So our lab numbers have gone down, and we are now inundated with meth in the form of ice. And ice is manufactured in Mexico in these super labs, and it is trafficked over the border, and it is reconstituted into the final product and sold. It's a cheap synthetic stimulant, and it is flooded our market. It's flooded our streets in America, particularly here in South Carolina.
Okay. I know a lot of this is public information. You can go online and take a look, but I did some reading on it and learned how you became sheriff. What exactly went down with the former sheriff? What can you share about that with our viewers?
Yeah, so in May of 2019, Sheriff Underwood, his chief deputy Sprouse, and his lieutenant Neal were indicted for various crimes related to civil rights violations, tampering with evidence, lying to the FBI, and other crimes. And so because he was an elected official and he was indicted for a serious felony, Governor McMaster suspended him from office and suspended his duties as the sheriff of Chester County. And so therefore I was asked to fill in as the interim. When I agreed, of course, I did not know if I was going to run or not. So I served as the interim in that capacity, and then I decided to run for this office in March of this year.
Okay. Why would you like to continue being sheriff?
Chester County is my home, first and foremost, and I have made a significant investment in my life and my family's life in Chester. I care about it deeply. Even though I worked for SLED and my office was in Columbia, for the better part of my career, I lived in Chester, and I drove to Columbia to my office or wherever I needed to. So this was a place I wanted to live. I wanted to raise my family here. Like I said earlier, Chester has experienced a lot of pain over the years, at least in my life. Some of those are just decisions that we've made that we could have done a better job at. But in the end, I see so much potential in our county, and I want to be a part of making those positive changes. I feel like I have. I've been in this role for about 17 months now, and I know of the positive changes that we've made at the sheriff's office, and let me be clear, these are changes and these are positive changes that we have made. This is about a community, a law enforcement community at the sheriff's office. These men and women who work daily, giving their lives, they sacrifice so much, and they are also committed to bringing about positive change for our community.
Okay. Yeah, I've stopped in there before, and I've met a lot of the deputies and office members. What would you like to share about what goes on there and the people you work with and for?
I can't brag about them enough, Chris. They are really the ones that make the machine work. So in my role, I'm obviously the face of the office, and it's my job to secure the resources that they need in order to do their job. But when I first came there, we had significant vacancies. We had about 21 vacancies in the office, and that's in 911, the detention center, and on the sheriff's side, sheriff's operations side. And right now, we probably have 2 vacancies on the sheriff's side. I believe one in 911, and maybe 3 or 4 on the detention side. So what does that say? That says that people want to come to Chester. They want to work at the Chester Sheriff's Office. And that's not because of me. That's because of the culture that all of us are building. From day one, I've said I wanted to change the culture. In order to change the culture, you've got to change the way people think. And it's mostly, how do they think about themselves? And when you change the way people see themselves, they will think differently. And in turn, that will change the culture. When I started there, I immediately implemented a set of ethical principles. And I said, these are principles that we are going to live and die by. And when we violate these principles, they will bring about severe discipline. Those principles are accountability, integrity, honesty, respect for others, fairness, and loyalty. And they're so significant that we printed out these armbands, and I wear this every day because that's how important they are to me. In addition to those principles, we implemented another principle, and it is essentially you have, if all employees are charged with addressing bad behavior.
Okay.
And so when you see something wrong, you're to confront and challenge that bad behavior. If you do not, then you're just as culpable as the person committing that bad behavior. And so those are the principles, those are the ethical core principles that make up our office. We have policies and procedures, and we are actually going through a revamping of all those policies and procedures. But we are not an agency that is we are built on rules, but we're built more on a culture of ethical principles. And when you have those principles in place and they're emphasized in everything you say and do and in the way you live, then the rules will take care of themselves.
Okay. I'm sure that anything could happen at any time in your profession, just like many others. But what is a typical day like for you?
I don't know.
Oh.
I haven't seen a typical day yet, Chris.
Okay.
But I'll tell you, a typical day is certainly not a 9 to 5 day. I will say I think I'm probably different than a lot of sheriffs or most sheriffs in South Carolina. Not to say that they're not working hard, because I know all of them are working hard daily, but easy. I'm working on average 12 hours a day or more. But when I say I'm working, that's not just in the office. I feel like it's very important that my job requires me to be out in the community. I want to hear what people are saying, and so I'm out in the community on a regular basis, day and night. I'm probably a little more involved than some sheriffs when it comes to investigations, and especially when emergency operations happen. I become very involved in those, and it's not that I'm getting in the details of it. I'm not getting in the weeds, and I'm certainly not micromanaging. It's my role to get the resources that those officers need in order for them to conduct those investigations. So I've spent time in dispatch because I want to know what those men and women do. I want to know about their jobs. I've been in the detention center. I've gone over there on a Saturday and worked in the detention center. Why? Because I knew nothing about a detention center when I took this job, and so I've spent time with those people. I'm interacting with investigators. I'm interacting with patrol deputies, SROs, you name it. I want to know what all the employees are doing because I need to know what they need to accomplish their mission.
Got it. Okay. What are your biggest challenges?
So, I told you one of the good things about our community is we're a small rural county. but sometimes that can be an impediment to the things that you need. When you're a small rural county, obviously you do not have the tax revenue that comes in to support those services, those government services, and so we're limited in that regard. There are equipment needs and personnel needs. Our personnel, it would be nice for them to be paid more, but that has changed. Just in the last 15 or 16 months, I've gone to the county council and I've pled my case as far as how we have had vehicle needs, and they've been very receptive to that. And so we have improved our vehicles, the equipment in our vehicles. We need to look at increasing the salaries of these officers, our detention officers, and our 911 dispatchers. That is all important, and why? Well, because all these employees are putting their lives on the line. They're making great sacrifices, and we've got to hire the best. And if you want to hire the best, if you're going to require the best from these employees, well, then we need to pay them appropriately. So those are challenges, of course. The other challenge right now is really it's tough being a cop nowadays. It's not very easy to recruit because law enforcement is experiencing a lot of pain. There are things that are being thrown at cops nowadays, literally and figuratively, and so that makes it difficult to have young people come into our profession because they can go and do other things. It's less stressful, more money, a lot safer, and so that's another huge challenge for us.
Okay. And you're running as a Republican. What made you decide to go with that specific party?
Well, I think the office of sheriff should be apolitical. I know we mostly have a two-party system in America. The system is dominated by a two-party system, and but I chose to run as a Republican because I subscribe more to the Republican Party platform personally. But in the end, when it comes to law enforcement and the office of the sheriff, I subscribe to the rule of law. I firmly believe in that. I firmly believe that regardless of politics, regardless of anything else, we are tasked with enforcing the law equally, fairly, effectively, and professionally. And so regardless of what party I may associate myself with or what party you may associate yourself with, the role as the sheriff, first and foremost, should be the party of the rule of law.
Got it. Okay. And you definitely touched a lot on it. Is there any other specific values that you want to share with what you're trying to do and what you're trying to implement?
Nothing more than I've already really said. Our values are just the fact that I want our employees to want to work there. And I think that culture change that we have been experiencing since I've been there is doing just that. People are wanting to come to Chester and work at the sheriff's office. They're wanting to give us a chance, and that's something that I'm proud of. I think it's because of the environment in which we've created. I'm not the one going out and recruiting people. I have a recruiter for that, but who's really the best recruiter are those employees that are working there. People see them, they hear about them, and so that is a testament to their what they believe in and the kind of cop that they want to be, and other people are seeing that, and that's why they're wanting to come to Chester.
Okay. So you briefly talked about how tough it is right now for law enforcement. What do you want our viewers and everyone to know? how can you strengthen the relationship between law enforcement and citizens, both racially and in general?
Yeah. And this may be an oversimplification of your question, but I think we can do that by just being the best cops that we can be. We can build trust in any community by being the best and being the most professional and being honest and trustworthy and having that integrity, being loyal not to whoever the sheriff is, but being loyal to the mission of what law enforcement stands for. All those things, that's how we can bring about trust. I think when we serve a community and we focus on our own interests, that's what divides us. That's what brings about distrust. And I don't know other communities around the country. I don't know what the temperature has been in these other communities, but I can tell you that law enforcement in South Carolina, and I've worked with most every sheriff's office in South Carolina and a lot of municipal police departments throughout my career. Cops in South Carolina, we all have high standards, and it is our job to maintain those high standards, and we can do that just by doing our job the best that we can. It's being done in some very difficult situations and under very tough conditions, but we can do that by bringing professionalism, and there are things that we can do through training, but in the end we've got to uphold those basic principles that I said earlier.
Okay. People want to learn more about you, Sheriff, and the sheriff's office down in Chester. Where can they go? Who do they need to talk to?
They are welcome to visit our Facebook page. I don't know that address right offhand. They can certainly Google our website. Like I said, I'm running right now, and I'll be on the November ballot. So my website is maxforsheriff.com, and I also have a similar Facebook page. So I would welcome and invite everyone to check out both of those pages. I would invite anybody to come to Chester, anyone out there around the world that would love to visit a small rural South Carolina town that is growing and that has so much potential. I would invite you to come to Chester and visit us. We would welcome you with open arms.
There's a state park down in Chester County, is that, or at least one?
We have a state park. We have two state parks.
Okay.
Lansford Canal State Park.
I love it there.
And Chester State Park. We have a beautiful downtown area in downtown Chester. We have several events throughout the year. Of course, Corona has thrown a wrench in a lot of what we do, but I would encourage people to check out our county's website and the municipal websites, because there are a lot of things that are generally going on, maybe not necessarily in our county, but this region. We are very heavily tied into that Charlotte area, and so I would encourage everybody to look up Chester and come visit us and consider making that investment in our community.
Awesome. Sheriff Dorsey, we talked about a lot today. Is there anything that I didn't ask or that you want to share with our viewers before we go?
No, Chris, thank you for giving me a great opportunity to tell my story and to tell the story about my town.
It's our pleasure. Thank you, Sheriff Max Dorsey, for coming on our show. And now a word from our sponsors.